Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Sherlockian interview. And today we have a narrator and an actor, Luke Barton. Hey, Luke, where do we find you in the world today?
I'm here in London. I'm in my flat today, trying to keep out of the rain in rainy old London.
Oh, rain again.
Uh,
The last
Always.
time, the last time I saw you, you were playing so many different characters. We were lucky enough to see you in Pride and Prejudice at the Jermaine Street Theatre.
Yeah.
Um, how many characters was it? Because you had so much fun doing it, right?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, yes, it was a three-hander. So between all of the characters in Pride and Prejudice, it was divided up. And I found myself playing, I think I played in the end eight or maybe nine characters, which included pretty much all of the men. So Mr. Darcy, Mr. Wickham, Mr. Bingley, Mr. Bennett, Mr. all of the Misters, Mr. Collins, and then a couple of the female parts as well. So it
Yeah,
was
you had a lot of fun with those, mate.
I
You
did, I
absolutely
did. I
did.
mean,
Yeah.
it was one of those sort of gifts really where, when I looked down the cast list and I thought I saw my characters, I thought, okay, yeah, I've got a really nice gig here because when you're given all those sorts of brilliant characters, you can have all that fun.
Yeah, I mean it was a really fun adaptation
Yeah.
as well. Do you know if any of them were ever recorded?
I think there was one recorded, yeah, for archive purposes. I
Oh,
don't know whether that will
okay.
ever sort of be issued out there for the world to see. I'm not sure.
That,
Watch this
that
space.
watch this space. That'd be a real
Yeah,
shame if it's not shared because it was
yeah.
an absolute hoot. I understand you went to the US for that as well. Was that kind of
Yes,
off,
yeah.
off Broadway or?
Yeah, not long ago. Yeah, we were there for 5 weeks doing off Broadway at 59E 59 theaters in New York City, and it was fantastic. I mean, for me, it was interesting because I thought this is such a quintessentially English novel, right? 18th century manor houses. It's so much about class and the class system, and I wonder how known this story, Pride and Prejudice, is in America, and how popular is it compared to over here, which obviously Jane Austen is enormously popular. And it turns out it's hugely popular in America. And we had the Jane Austen Society of North America sent a load of their guys over to watch as well. And I mean, we had people from all over the states coming to watch it. And the reception was amazing, and they loved it. And I think one thing that's very different between an American audience and a British audience is Americans are unapologetically effusive and energetic in their response. When they like something, they really express it. Whereas obviously us Brits can be a little bit more reserved sometimes and a bit quieter. So, I mean, there were times where we felt like we were celebrities. Honestly, the kind of reactions we were getting. So it was brilliant. It was my first time in New York as well. So, I mean, what a city, what a place to go.
Yeah, fantastic place. Now, before we get onto the main subject, of course, Mr.
Mm.
Holmes and the Jeremy Brett book, which
Yeah.
we'll talk at length about, I can't not mention you also did the gig on a cruise ship. Now,
Yeah.
that sounds like a pretty cushy gig. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
how was it?
It was good. I mean, we had 2 weeks. We flew out to Miami. We had a night in Miami. We got on the ship the next day, and then we set off. A couple of days at sea. Very nice. We got off at the Bahamas, had a lovely day on the beach down there, got back on the ship, sailed off. And we were meant to stop at Bermuda, but the captain said the weather was a little too choppy for the ship to come in. So we sailed on across the Atlantic. And if you work on I don't know if this is the same on every cruise ship, but for the actors on the Cunard ship doing a play, we did two shows, so one show each of the 2 weeks we were at sea, and we did a couple of workshops and a couple of kind of like we did like some Shakespeare evenings, kind of some speeches. But apart from that, we were at our leisure to enjoy all the comforts of the cruise ship, including 50% off. Um, the beverages, which we obviously as actors took full advantage of, as well as the food. And it was incredible. Now, The only downside of doing a show on a cruise ship, as we learnt, was the fact that the theatre was at the front of the ship, so the bounciest part of the vessel. And honestly, I've never suffered from seasickness. I was there for the first few days, absolutely fine. And then there was something about being right at the front of the ship, and it was the choppiest day at sea. And because you've got no window, so you can't see the horizon, it was torture. Not throwing up was torture. And then, when we were actually doing the play, you go to walk across the stage as you do any other night, and the floor's just moving.
Oh,
Sometimes it's a bit closer, sometimes it's a bit further away, and you're trying your best. And Pride and Prejudice, it's Regency England. Every man, you stand upright, you stand tall, you stand firm. It's about stillness and control. Not on this, we were all over the shop swaying everywhere. But the crowd on the cruise ship were really wonderful, and they really, really loved it. So and again, I've never had an experience where, normally you work in the theatre, you might see a few members of the audience at stage door afterwards, and then that's it. They go off and you never really see them again. Um, in this, on a ship, you are staying in the same hotel as your audience. So walking around the ship, one day I was in the laundry, putting my pants in the washing machine, and somebody went, "Hey, I loved the show the other day," which is a brand
oh,
new
Mr.
experience.
Oh, Mr. Darcy. Yeah,
That's it, Mr. Darcy. Sorry, put the pants down as I shake your hand,
Yeah.
It was great. But it was a great experience. Really, really great.
Well, I'm now that you told me about that seasickness bit, I'm going to retract my comments I was going to say about not getting a call, to
Yeah,
come
oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
come
yeah. No,
join.
no.
We better get on to Sherlock Holmes for all the Sherlock
Yes.
Holmes fans listening. For your first production, you played him on a couple of continents, didn't you? Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah. Yeah, so I did the Sign of Four, and we did a big tour around the UK, and then we went over to the Netherlands actually as well, and did a few different venues around the Netherlands. And then we did a month's touring in China, which again, that was another of those incidents where I was kind of going, oh, I wonder how popular Sherlock Holmes is in China. I wonder, this very British, and that production was very much in the world of the novel, trying to stay true to the novel and the spirit and the atmosphere of the novel, full Victorian dress, that sort of a thing. And again, it was another wonderful experience where actually you see just how global the popularity of Sherlock Holmes was. I mean, China has an enormous population, so their theaters are huge in order to, maximize the capacity of how many people come to see a show. And we were, playing to thousands of people, and so many of them wanted to talk to us afterwards and say how much they loved it, and how familiar they were with the Sherlock Holmes stories. It was incredible. So yeah, another wonderful experience, taking it over to China and seeing how popular it was.
Now, we saw you in London, The Hound of the Baskervilles, which
Yeah,
is it was it was the first sort of big dinner theatre sort of thing that I've been to, where
yeah,
I think there were three or four stages. It was quite immersive, and it was very much kind of Victorian food as well,
yeah.
kedgeree and all that kind of stuff. Um, and we got lucky because I think we got you as Watson
Yes.
on the night we went, because of course Hound is a weird story in the sense that you don't actually have a lot of Holmes in it.
No.
It's a lot. There's a lot of Watson,
Yeah.
and we got lucky because you were Watson, but you switched, didn't you? You were switched. You did some
Yes.
days Holmes, some days Watson.
Yeah. So it was a funny production really, because it was obviously in 2021. So it was kind of just as we were being released from the first lockdown, I think, or maybe
Mm.
the second. I can't remember, but it was
Kind of in
very much,
between, wasn't it? Yeah.
yeah, it was in that kind of weird era where we were sort of having relaxed rules, but still COVID was very present. And for casts and, theaters around the country, the issue of cast members going down with COVID was a big problem. So what this theatre company did was they had an understudy and what I was, which was a sort of alternate. So I would be there in case Holmes and Watson ever got ill. But as part of the contract, in a way that I think is better than a normal understudy, I had guaranteed performances every week.
Right.
So on a Sunday, I would alternate. I would do Holmes one week and then Watson the next week. So I got to play both, which was really fantastic. I had to learn both, which was an enormous challenge. And like you say, Watson was a big learn for that show because he's really sort of dealing with the entire investigation all the way
And
around. So,
and it was one of those ones where you got to play comedic a bit as well. You got
yeah,
to
yeah,
have a bit
yeah.
of fun with the audience. The other one we saw, and I think we saw you now. I know we saw you at Guildford actually because
Yes.
you very kindly popped down and had dinner with us in between shows, which was
Oh
quite
yeah,
funny.
of course. Yeah,
And I'll
yeah,
come back to that in just a second. But that was Valley of Fear,
yeah,
from Black Eyed Theatre, adapted
yeah.
by the wonderful Nick Lane, of course.
Yes, yes.
So you seem to have a lot of fun in that production as well.
Yeah, I mean, Valley of Fear is a really great one, isn't it? Because the the backstory of Vermissa Valley and the gang, it's so different. And I think Nick had adapted The Sign of Four as well, and in that production, I only played Sherlock, whereas in Valley of Fear, I got to play Teddy Baldwin as well, which
Mm.
was a really lovely, to play the hero and the villain. And Teddy
Yeah,
Baldwin is so different,
great
and
character. Yeah,
oh, gorgeous. And we really enjoyed playing around with a big influence for Nick with that, and the world of Vermissa Valley was the television show Justified, which is sort of this brilliant modern kind of, it's set in Kentucky,
I love
and
Justified.
oh, it's
It's
great, isn't it?
fantastic.
Timothy Oliphant bringing brilliant, yeah.
Yeah.
So we were kind of interested, and he said, I mean, long before rehearsal started, that he'd been watching it and he recommended it. So I watched it all and kind of took a bit of an influence on some of those characters into Teddy Baldwin, with that like southern drawl and that yeah, that really kind of animalistic, earthy sort of criminalities that you see in those brilliant characters in Justified. So we tried to bring that in. So to play both Holmes and Baldwin was a lovely contrast that I got to kind of explore, which was great.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned this to you before, but we had dinner with a number of Sherlockian writers,
Yeah,
some of whom you've narrated, and we had the wonderful Sherlock Holmes historian, Alistair Duncan, with us because he lives not
yeah,
too far from Guildford. And when I was with him a little while back, he said it was the most surreal evening. He said because we went and saw this fantastic performance with Luke and the Sherlock Holmes, and then we were in the pub eating dinner, talking about the benefits of air fryers with Sherlock Holmes, and it was kind of a bit
yeah, yeah.
surreal,
Well, it is.
because
Yeah,
then you kind of switch off. And the last thing we wanted to talk to you about was Holmes because you just spent two
yeah,
hours being Holmes, and then
yeah,
you had to dash off because it was kind of like
yes,
I can only have one, I can only have a half or whatever it is because I'm going back
yeah.
on stage in a little bit.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, it was also, I think I just bought my air fryer at that point and I was raving about it to you guys. So yeah, it must have been a little bit jarring for Alistair, me coming off
Oh
as
no,
home.
he loved it, and we bought
Yeah.
ours shortly after it. So you definitely
Hey,
made a
there you go.
sale. You definitely made a sale
Upselling.
on it. Upselling. Let's talk about narration. You've
Yeah.
done some fantastic narration for us. Can you remember what the first one
I
you did?
think it was one of Rich Ryan's. I think it might have been one of his Through a Glass Starkly was
Yeah.
was the first one I did for him. Yeah, 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 which is one of his novels rather than a sort of short story collection.
Yeah, he's done
So
mostly novels. He's done a few short,
yeah,
but he's done mostly novels, and you've got one of his in production at the moment, haven't you?
yes, I have. Yes, yes, to
I
be
think
to
that's
be
his 10th. I think
Is
that's
it really? Yeah, no,
I think
I
it's
know
his
he's done a
10th.
few.
I think it's his
Yeah,
10th one.
wow. Wow,
Yeah.
yeah.
Now you've done both short stories
Hmm.
and novels.
Yeah.
Do you have a preference for them with Holmes?
No, I don't think I have a preference. I think they both offer something very different, which as a narrator is interesting to play with. I think when you do a novel, the last of Rich Ryan's, there was the Traitorous Templar. There was a great backstory, which I think is what the novels offer. And Conan Doyle obviously did this when you're with the Sign of Four or the Valley of Fear. There's a point in the story when Conan Doyle goes, and now we're going off. We're going to leave Holmes and Watson. Now they've kind of caught the criminal, and we're going to go off and explore how the criminal got to be where they are in the story. And you go back into their backstory, and the novels give you the space to do that in a way that is brilliant. And in the last of Rich's Traitorous Templar, there's a really fantastic backstory. Knights Templar. I'm not going to give anything away, but set very much centuries before. In the world of the Knights Templar, with all of that going on, which to go back and that then gives you as a narrator an opportunity to play some really completely different characters that are not Victorian and maybe in a different part of the world. So I love that. But then with a short story, I suppose because it's shorter, the pace of the investigation is faster, right? The urgency and the stakes to solve it are usually much, much quicker and much higher. So there's a faster energy in a short story than there is perhaps in the novel, which usually has a much more prolonged investigation. So I kind of like doing both, really.
Well, we'll try and make sure we give you a bit of both
Yeah,
as
yeah,
we
yeah.
go forward. I know that
Yeah.
probably 80% of the top 20 Sherlock Holmes audiobooks at the moment are the short story collections. They're really
Yeah.
flying and they're really, really popular. Richard is really good at those backstories. I think his first
Yeah.
novel, which is called The Vatican Cameos,
Yeah.
has two stories running in parallel, hundreds of years apart. And I know he got a big endorsement for that one from Lee Child because he said,
Yeah.
"Like, this is absolutely fantastic way of kind of writing Holmes." Let's jump on to this. What I am hoping is your magnum opus here in terms of narration, and that's the Jeremy Brett biography. Now,
Yeah.
Jeremy Brett playing a part is the biggest book we've ever produced. It's one of the most successful we've ever done. It's been translated and released into Japanese, and it is out there in Japan. I know. I think we sent you a
Yeah.
copy of that. It's
Got a
beautifully
lovely.
done. The
Oh,
Japanese version,
yeah.
really great.
Gorgeous.
But the bigger version you did, Jeremy Brett is Sherlock Holmes. It's kind of like a subset of it. This one's the full
Yeah.
book, so it's
Mm.
400 pages long. I
Yeah.
think it's nearly 200,000 words. So I
Yes,
think
I think.
it came in at 19 hours long.
Yeah.
And this is everything that Brett did, really. I mean, it's
Yeah.
basically a massive performance biography. Tell us a bit about it and tell us your favorite parts of it.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was fascinating, really, because you know I'm an actor, so any kind of, and I don't ordinarily, even really for pleasure, read the biographies of actors, and I don't really know why. Even favorite actors of mine, I don't know. I've never sort of stumbled across many of them or chosen one off the shelf to read and take an interest in their sort of life because I suppose I don't know. You see their work so often, so to delve into the full catalogue of work that he did. And this Brett was there when the National, with Olivier, with the National Theatre when it first kind of got created and was part of that original rep company. He was over in the States doing My Fair Lady, and he was constantly working in both American and British television, playing all sorts of different parts. And I think just what was fascinating for me was just seeing how the moment he left drama school and kind of went for it, just how prolific he was and how much work he did and how wide ranging that was. And what I think is magnificent about the book really is how there are so many personal accounts by him where he reflects very personally, whether it's in an interview or whether it's in sort of private letters or anything like that, where he kind of just comments on how it's going at various points in his life and what those acting roles were like, the challenges he found as an actor, and the very personal struggles that he had, which anyone who knows anything about Brett, as he was doing his, most celebrated role of Holmes, he really battled with it as a role, which as an actor that's played Holmes, I was like, oh God, I thought it was just me. Okay, great. Other actors, as esteemed as Brett, have struggled with the role. Um, but also, the personal struggles that he was going through with his health and everything as he was doing that stint as Holmes, it was really, yeah, really fascinating to delve into that. And he was very generous, I think, and talked very openly about his struggles. And that gives us a lot of material to kind of go into his head, really, and see where he was at.
It's a phenomenal piece of work from Maureen, and she spent decades
Yeah.
putting the book together. She had wonderful access to a number of friends and the family of Jeremy's to get that inside track,
Yeah.
and some of
Yeah.
those unique, totally unique photographs. I think there's nearly 400 photographs in the book. I think uniquely what we're going to try and do with the audio book is we're going to try and release the PDF picture version with the audiobook because I
Oh,
think
nice.
although it's 19 hours of narration, I think it's important that the photos are there as well
Yeah.
for the listener to be able
Yeah.
to maybe go back on. And we've had a lot of comments from Brett fans from all over the world that they almost use it as a kind of encyclopedia of Brett's work to delve back into. I mean, it's pretty much a coffee table book,
Yeah.
and you need a strong shelf to put it on.
Yeah.
It's 400 pages. It's pretty heavy and it's large
Yeah.
format as well.
Yeah.
But one of the things that really struck me working on that project was that obviously I knew Brett as Holmes, but I had no idea how prolific he was as a wider actor. And
Yeah.
if you speak to Brett fans, they are well aware of his much wider body of work. But there is a subset of, I feel, Sherlock Holmes fans that only know him for Holmes.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you get into this kind of discussion Rathbone or obviously there's the newer range with Cumberbatch and
Yeah.
RDJ, but Brett fans probably is the biggest. If you did a pie chart, who's the
Yeah.
best homes, like Brett would be the biggest slice of the pie.
Oh,
But
definitely.
I feel that being exposed to the wider project that Maureen brought to us, thank goodness, really opened my eyes to the wider work that he did.
Yeah, and I think that he was an actor, I think, working at a glorious moment, really, of starting off on the stage and those, that was his passion, and to be an actor really was to be a stage actor, I think, when he was first starting out. But just how much more television was becoming an outlet for our main source of entertainment. And how he talks very interestingly, I find, about his style of acting. He's very conscious and aware of how he is as a performer, his stylistic sort of features, and he talks, and some of the reviews, because Maureen's littered it with quotes from reviews from all the newspapers about his performances, and they all comment on how much they love his eloquent sort of style of performance and his quite grand style.
But it's like smoothie, kind of like swooping
Yeah,
kind of way of
yeah, yeah.
acting. Yeah.
He's often described as balletic in his movement. And I think when he then gets to doing Holmes, and this is in the 80s and television is just here now, he talks about what joy it was for him as a theatre actor to perform Holmes, and in a televisual way, in a small way where it's all about the thoughts going through his head. And he he also talks about the fact that he thinks in a way that it only would work on television. That Holmes it can only work on television because of how it's about a cerebral mind, and even the emotions that Brett thinks he does feel are very kind of controlled and inside his head. He's trying to control those emotions. So it's a flicker across the eyes that you see a glimpse of an emotion, which he then passes by. Which he said in the book, if you did that on a big stage, the audience would miss it. Um,
Yeah.
but then, of course, he does go on with Edward Hardwicke to do The Secret of Sherlock Holmes in the theatre with a big tour, and it's enormously successful. But obviously, that comes at the end of the television performance that he started. So, I think wherever you sit on who's the best Holmes, I think one thing is very clear, that what Brett did was sort of set a new precedent for Holmes. After Rathbone and those wartime films, he created a Holmes that I think was exciting and extremely true to the book, because that was his main thing. And I've got to say, as an actor, I have the same impulse when, if I'm doing Pride and Prejudice or Valley of Fear or whatever I'm doing. For me, the source material is everything. And I'm always a little bit suspicious of deviating too far from the source material. And Brett was the same. When it came to it, he was having rows with the writers. Why are you changing the line? That's not what Conan Doyle wrote.
Yeah.
And I respect that.
Yeah, and I think for me, you either stay with the canon or you dive. If you diverge from the canon and you're open about diverging from the canon, so I'm a big RGJ fan, wider
Mm.
outside than his Holmes work. But those are steampunk action movies, and they're
Yeah,
unashamedly that's what they are. And
yeah,
he's shorter than Watson, which should never
yeah,
be, and all those kind of things. But you're going into it knowing that, and I think the pressure probably that Brett was under with Granada was that once he'd set his stall out to say this is going to be canonical and I'm going to do it absolutely straight and I'm going to stay to it, that brought a whole level of pressure because once you're RDJ and you're out there and you're doing a bunch of different things like the slow-mo fighting and all
yeah,
the steampunk stuff that comes in, the pressure to be right on the canon is gone, right? And I think
yeah.
that's probably where some of the stress came for Brett.
Definitely, yeah. And he talks. He was very aware, and there's a lovely section in the book where he acknowledged being the leading man in an enormously expensive television production, which was the first major TV production of Holmes since those wartime films, and how carrying that was an enormous burden because you've got to get it right. And all of the reviews, they all start with if you're going to play, if you're going to do the Holmes stories, casting's everything. If you get your Holmes and Watson wrong,
Yep.
nothing else that follows it doesn't matter. Luckily, Granada cast Jeremy Brett and Edward Hardwicke, and they work so magnificently together. So uh, his choice paid off, his risks paid off. But it's if you know the books, if you read the books, it's such a successful production in capturing the atmosphere of the books. And I think he's so meticulous about the descriptions of homes in the book and how he brings those to life. It's really wonderful.
And it's interesting for me interviewing a lot of different people in the homes world, how the influence is continuing today. So for those of you that haven't listened to the Lee Child interview that I did a couple of years back, we're going to re-release that so everybody can hear it again. Lee talks about the fact that he was at Granada uh,
Oh,
at the time that they were filming. So he got to meet Brett and he got to see Brett play Holmes uh,
wow.
up close.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he talks about how much of an influence on the Reacher character
Mm,
Sherlock Holmes is. And, that's a famous quote from the Spanish, I think it was a Spanish journalist called him Sherlock Homeless. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
As he's
yeah.
out on the road and so he doesn't have a foil, he doesn't have a Watson. Although you could argue that in each story he kind of adopts a temporary
Recruits
Watson
one.
as he,
Yeah,
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 he kind of recruits one and then moves on to the next one going forward. So even in like, many years later, 40 years later after the series, the influence of Brett continues to go forward.
yeah.
Uh, even with someone like Lee and his Reacher novels. Well, it's a fantastic piece of work. I know it's nearly complete and ready to release on the world, and we will
Yes.
make sure that we get it out there with the pictures. Um, Long may you narrate, Luke, because you're one of our favourite narrators, and the fans love you as Holmes. I
Thank
know
you.
you have a lot of fun doing it, so
Yes.
let's try and keep getting you more novels and more short story collections. And thanks for your time today. And look forward to catching up with you soon and imbibing some old fashions in London.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that sounds rather nice. Thank you very much. I look forward to that.